talk about, as Daniel said, a bit more detail about Singapore and the butyl business in general. So most of you may have already seen this. Key figures for butyl within the Lanxess world: sales greater than $500 million, 50%, as I said, generated in the Asia Pacific region, more than 50%, and now half of that is in Greater China. 3 plants now, global footprint, 400,000 tons per annum of capacity, 150 in Belgium, 150 in Canada, and 100 here in Singapore. Within the business there's approximately 1,200 employees, and we service more than 200 customers. We make regular butyl, which mainly goes in inner tubes, also goes into chewing gum. For those who chew gum, you chew our regular butyl because we're the only manufacturers who make it. And then we make bromobutyl, which is what we will make here in Singapore. We make 3 grades, and we make 1 grade of chlorobutyl. Sales, over 75% or approximately 75% goes in the tyre business. Pharma, the closures which you saw at the back of the main tent, 10%. Chewing gum, approximately 5%. And then others such as adhesives, sealants, condenser caps, ball bladders, etc. make up the other 10%. We said this morning, megatrend mobility drives the demand for butyl rubber. Regional demand, as you can see, is split very much now biased towards Asia Pacific. 57% of the demand comes from this region, 21% from Europe, Middle East and Africa, 18% from North America, and 4% from LATAM. Growth rates, compounded annual growth rate for the market for butyl, 5%. The total nameplate capacity, the total market is about 1.2 billion tons. So 5% growth is somewhere around 50,000 tons extra growth per year. Again, 6% in Asia Pacific. This is the growing region, one of the reasons why butyl and Lanxess is here. EMEA, Europe, Middle East and Africa, 2%. And that is mainly biased towards what we used to call the old Eastern Europe. North America 2% and LATAM 6%. Driven a lot, I said this morning, I really like truck tyres. Truck tyres have almost 2 kilograms of head of butyl in their inner liner. So there's more of them than passenger tyres. That's one of the drivers, passenger mobility, but also freight traffic increases, and then the need for more truck and bus tyres increases. There's a trend in certain parts of the world to go to radial tyres, especially in the truck and bus area. Lots of places in China and India still have inner tubes in the truck tyres. That's changing. And of course, outside tyres, the growing global middle class with improved access to medical care also helps in the pharmaceutical applications. Here's a very interesting graph. It's on the y-axis is millions of units, automobiles basically, and you can see the predicted growth. LMC is a company headquartered in England, I think in Oxford, an independent company that do these types of surveys, and you can see the compounding annual growth rate in China and India predicted to be 10%. So China, as most people are aware, will be the growth engine for mobility, and passenger cars in China and India are expected to more than triple to almost 500 million units or cars within the next 15 years. And as it said, growing the vehicle fleet at 10%. Just for those who are not quite so familiar with the topic as I am, what's an inner liner? That's an inner liner. That's what you're looking at. That is halobutyl, and that is where the product from this factory goes. That is keeping the air in your tyres on your car. It is impermeable to air. The innermost part of a tyre is halobutyl. Everybody knows that's the tread. That's where the neodymium polybutadiene material will also go, in the tread. I talked about radialization, and I talked about China and India, and you can see the rates for radialization in China basically took off in the time 2007, 2010, and continues to grow. Still a way off reaching 100% in these predictions, and you see a similar prediction for India. So India has a long way still to go with truck and bus radialization. China has undergone in the last 5 years a significant part of the radialization, but still is somewhere only around 75% radialized. So that trend will spark more and more demand for halobutyl. I talked about the pharmaceutical closures or the medical devices. Again, it's the product of choice for closures. Again, why? It's impermeability. Keeps the air and all the nasties from getting into your vials of medicine. And also when you puncture it with a syringe, it will self-seal. So two of the reasons why it is used. It's actually mandated in some countries, China for one. And you can see here the significant growth rate in China, where in 2001, as far as the pharmaceutical position by consumption, China was 10th. Now it's, well, in 2009, the latest figures we have, it was 7th. And expected to grow by the end of this decade to 2nd, behind the USA, and overtake Japan. It's there, it's used in stoppers, caps, pipette assemblies, those devices you suck on to bring in medicine, and closures for infusion containers. It's non-toxic, excellent physical and chemical properties, it reseals, and it also good resistance to aging, air aging. It has very good resistance. Just for completeness sake, most people have seen this graph before. It just shows where all the butyl plants are around the world. 3 in the Americas, 3 in Europe, 2 in Russia, the joint venture in Japan, our plant in Singapore, and there's 2 plants in China. I should say, basically, there's only 3 companies today that manufacture halobutyl. That's us, ExxonMobil, and Nishtikanth in Russia. We're the only 3 companies that manufacture halobutyl. Axel alluded to this on the stage. Since the beginning of Lanxess, we have spent over 500 million euros in adding capacity for our customers. When I took over this business, the capacity in Belgium was 118,000 tonnes, today 150, and the capacity in Sarnia was somewhere around 75,000 tonnes, and it's now 150. A few more facts about here. I mentioned them this morning, but just for completeness sake and the fact you have a hard copy, 400 million euros, on time, on budget. The plant is operational. Capacity 100,000 tonnes per annum, built on 150,000 square metres with 160 new highly skilled jobs here on the site. And of course, other jobs have been created around Singapore, for instance, maintenance jobs we contract out that, and contractors have had to hire people to do the maintenance. Raw material supply has been secured, long-term contract from a cracker here in Singapore. World scale size, less energy than the other two plants, smaller environmental footprint. There's the schedule we said, which was Q1, cold and hot commissioning, Q2, our own testing and sending it to customers, and we expect to start commercial sales in Q3. This plant is here to supply this region. So, what have we got? We've got favourable technology. It's new and different technology. Streamlined process, lower energy consumption. We've optimized it. We've made some changes. Lower energy consumption. Next will be, I think everybody's aware, we have pilot plants. We're trying to develop a new process for butyl, which will be the next generation. I'd like to keep the bottom one simple for the non-technical people. Butyl is made up of two raw materials, one called isobutene or isobutylene. A C4 contains 4 carbon atoms, 1 double bond. That's the raw material that comes from the steam cracker. If on the site tour you would have seen the facility that we built to purify that raw material. Isoprene is there at about 2% levels, and we purchased that off island. We polymerize it, minus 100 degrees centigrade, 3-stage polymerization process, 3-stage cooling process, cooling water, propane, ethylene, and we have 2 big compressors to do that. We then end up with regular butyl rubber, which we can sell. Plant is fully flexible. It can make either regular butyl rubber or bromobutyl rubber. Then we take the regular butyl rubber and we brominate it. And then we make, via that route, bromobutyl, and we make, as I said, 3 grades of bromobutyl. There are no plans at this point in time to make chlorobutyl there. At the beginning of the meeting today, or the ceremony today, you saw the short film. It talked about butyl in threads. Lanxess has developed that technology. We have built tyres. Those 2 cars you saw there, they were Audis, I think. I can't remember. I'm not a car buff. Those 2 cars you saw, one of them was fitted with the tyres that we manufactured at one of the major tyre companies in this world. So we went to their facility, we gave them the recipe, they built tyres for us under our supervision, and they tested them. Not us, they tested them. That was their test drivers driving those cars, not ours. So what did we see? Much better traction, much better handling. You can see the car that doesn't have butyl in treads, really the back end whips out, and much better wet braking. And here's some numbers for that. The stopping distance in wet was 8% less than normal tyres. The lap times around a wet circuit was 3% less, and the last graph just shows you we can do that by also getting not losing the rolling resistance. So we get better traction, we get better grip, and we don't lose the rolling resistance, which is important for our tyre customers. I talked briefly about another product. Here it is here. You can touch it. This is an ionomer. This is a butyl ionomer. We've taken butyl and we've reacted it with another material outside the butyl process, and we made this material. The first thing you notice is doesn't stick together. If I put halobutyl in this, I would never be able to do this. It just sticks. The pot bale at the back of the room, that is sticky butyl. And that butyl forms one lump. This is an ionomer. It has some very interesting properties, and we're working with a number of end users in adhesives because it's antimicrobial. It kills microbes on touch. Butyl doesn't, but this does. It has very good antimicrobial properties. Because of that, we're working with some pharmaceutical companies where rubber is needed because they see that as very interesting. Medical adhesives, again, because of its antimicrobial properties. Antimicrobial coatings. I made the joke about golf grips, but basically, all of us who go into the supermarkets and push those trolleys along, which everybody else pushes before you, that bar has got lots of microbes on it. So you can think about those type of applications where many people touch and you want to kill the microbes. Okay, last slide, just to sum up. Butyl rubber for Lanxess, we're in a strong position in a premium business. New plants here in Singapore, improved technology, lower energy, lower environmental footprint. Market driven by the mega trend mobility, especially in China, also in India. I know India hasn't done so well in the last few years, but it'll come, just give it time. And we're driven by innovation as well. We work with our customers to innovate. And we work with both tyre and non-tyre customers. I think that's it. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Rob. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I know it is very warm in here, and